Hey, what's up, guys? This is NGS, and welcome back to another edition of the Real Talk Reviews. I guess you can call it a Real Talk Review. I prefer to title this one more of a scatterbrained review because I just got back from seeing Marvel's Avengers Age of Ultron in IMAX 3D. I don't really go to too many movies, as you guys know. More often than not, I don't go to too many IMAX movies, but when I do, they hand out some pretty awesome memorabilia. So this is going to go great on my wall with my Pacific Rim poster. Whenever I actually do hang that up here. Anyway, so it's time to talk about Avengers Age of Ultron, guys. And I'm going to try to keep this as spoiler-free as possible because I know a lot of you guys haven't seen the movie yet. I actually got a chance to check it out at a 7 p.m. showing. It is now 11:46, so yeah, there show my priorities. But yeah, Avengers Age of Ultron finally hit the United States. It's been in other countries for about a week or so. So I'm about to try my best to give you guys as spoiler-free review as I possibly can. So without further ado, let's begin. First and foremost, I gotta say this was a very interesting movie. A very, very interesting Marvel movie. Because I think to an extent we didn't know what we were expecting going into it. I mean, we'd seen the Avengers once. And how could you top that? How could you top what is basically cinematic history, creating a universe with so many different heroes and then culminating in one film? That's just an enormous task. So how are you going to replicate that kind of success a second time around? But for the most part, Joss Whedon and his team kind of did. They kind of captured the feeling of what made the first Avengers great. However, they did it in a different way. They didn't follow the same footsteps that the first movie did. Whereas in the first movie, it was more about the heroes getting to know one another and then uniting towards the end for the greater good. This time around, it's more about destruction. It's more about destroying the team and everybody you know from the inside out. And you can definitely get a hint of that in the trailers because one of the main things about Age of Ultron, what I like about it is that it sets the tone for the future of Marvel movies in a different way. Going into this, if you're expecting something along the lines of Captain America Winter Soldier, where when you watch that movie, the entire universe, the entire game is changed. The destruction of S.H.I.E.L.D., Hail Hydra, all that crazy stuff. If you're expecting something on that caliber, where the universe is going to be changed, don't. Because that is not what this movie's about. And I don't think that's what the Avengers movies are meant to be. I don't think they're meant to be game changers. I don't think they're meant to shake up the universe like that. So if you're expecting that, then you're going to be disappointed. But what I think the Age of Ultron and just the Avengers movie in general serve as a purpose is to bring everybody back together to unite against the greater good. To unite for the greater good against an evil. And a lot of people think that's cliche and done before in the past, which it is. It's an age-old tale. But that doesn't make it bad when it's done in the right way, which is what they've been doing for this time around. So I'm going to try to structure this and make it flow as smoothly as possible. First and foremost, I want to talk about the tone of the movie. Like, just straight up from the get-go, they just throw you into the action. You have to know who these characters are, what they're about going into this, because it doesn't give you the explanations on who these people are. They start, making quips and jokes and certain traits about the character that you would have to know going from the other movies. And the one thing I really like that they did this time around is they definitely focused on characters who didn't have a lot of screen time in the other Avengers movies. Whereas the last Avengers movies was really focused on bringing the team together. It definitely did have a Tony Stark-centric focus. Of course, they gave the Hulk some screen time and Black Widow here and there. But this time around, it's all about mainly three people. Black Widow, you get to see more about her past, which is something I've been wanting for the longest time. Hawkeye gets a lot of character development this time around, which was insanely cool. I'll speak on more of that later. And the main badass, the team leader, giving people all kinds of beatdowns, the Captain, Steve Rogers, Captain America. Ooh, I can't wait to talk about what happens in this movie. But everybody is solid for the most part. Everybody does a great job acting-wise. Everybody is in character, and that's, I think, what really matters at the end of the day. No one really seems too out there. And acting-wise, everybody's great. There were concerns that since they're introducing a lot of characters on screen that no one's going to get a lot of screen time. I don't think that's the case because everybody pretty much shined in what they were supposed to do. This time around, Thor really wasn't having too much emphasis. Bruce Banner wasn't the main focus. They were switching things around, which I definitely think is a good thing. They introduced two new characters in the form of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. And both of those guys, you definitely do feel for them because of what they've been through. And there were some concerns that since they're not called mutants, they're going to be different entirely. They're not. I can tell you this for a fact that what they did to the characters was pretty cool. They're more genetic manipulations than anything else. They're more enhanced humans than they are like mutants. Just a copyright battle, they can't use the word mutant. But I gotta give a shout out to Quicksilver. Aaron Taylor Johnson, that's how it's done. That is how you do a speedster. You don't have to break him to flash speeds and do all this crazy slow motion stuff, make him look like a Spy Kids reject to show a true speedster. So I loved Quicksilver in this movie. Now, moving on to the one thing that I think really excelled this time around more than the any other Marvel movie is that the humor was so on point. Literally, you're going to be laughing at almost every damn scene in this movie. There is always a quip, there's always a joke, there's always something funny. In some cases, you wouldn't expect it to be funny. Everybody's just a laugh. Everybody has their time to shine in that department, which I really love. There were a lot of funny scenes in this movie, and it's just great. I love seeing that. And I know a lot of people like to say Marvel's more lighthearted, and they always go for the jokes and everything, but that doesn't make it a bad thing because they contrast that equally in other films. So what's a couple jokes here and there? It's not a bad thing. And when they got Spider-Man coming into the mix, come on now. Like seriously, it's going to be a joke fest. So that was great. The humor is definitely on point. It doesn't feel cheesy, corny, or out of place. And it's definitely a lot more. It's up there with Guardians of the Galaxy style humor, but it's just a little bit more class, I guess, if you'll say. So yeah, I really like the characters this time around. The humor was on point. The action was just phenomenal, as I think any summer blockbuster would. The Iron Man versus Hulkbuster fight was great. The final climax was good, albeit not on the same scale as the first Avengers movie. It was very different than the first Avengers movie, but similar in a lot of respects. It's not how do I say this? It's not an Endgame type situation where you have to stop this bad guy before the whole world is, imploded. It kind of is, but at the same time, if you watch the movie, you'll see that they're trying to, I guess, steer away from that sort of thing because once you've done it one time, two times, three times, it gets boring. So that might be something that puts people off if they're getting tired of the whole Endgame type thing where you have this person who's going to destroy the world, which is a perfect segue to talk about Ultron, the main villain of the movie. Ultron was definitely not what I expected, to say the least. That was one of the things I was very scared about going into the movie, Ultron and his origin story. As you guys know in the comics, Ultron is a creation of Hank Pym, and there's so much history behind that I'm not going to get into. But yeah, it's a very, very, very important part of the character and his creation. But in this movie, since there was the whole battle with Edgar Wright and him not fulfilling, his obligations, they used Ultron and they made Tony Stark his creator, artificial intelligence and all that, which, I mean, I'm disappointed because I feel like they wasted it, but at the same time, I understand what Whedon and Feige had to do. And it serves its purpose in the movie, but Ultron really isn't. He's okay. First and foremost, I'll just say it's awesome because he's not a Marvel villain you've ever seen before. If you watch the trailers for this movie and think you've seen the entirety of it, you have not. Ultron himself is just so different than any Marvel movie villain you've seen, which is great. You'll understand what I'm talking about. I don't want to spoil it because I think that's the best part of the movie. But at the same time, Ultron suffers from what every other MCU villain suffers from. Lack of development, lack of screen time. Like, they cannot keep a person alive to save their life. Everybody has to die. We've seen this in the Iron Man movies. We've seen this in Thor: The Dark World. We've seen this in Captain America. We've seen this in Guardians of the Galaxy. They kill so many villains that have a lot of potential, and then it's just wasted. So Ultron to me did feel kind of weak to an extent, considering that these movies are pretty far in. We just finished up phase 2, and we don't even have a strong villain to be like, yo, that guy was crazy. The only villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that actually has gotten up there to crazy levels wasn't even in the movies. He's in the Daredevil TV series, and his name is Wilson Fisk. So that was kind of disappointing to me. Ultron never really felt like a threat. Sure, he had his whole Endgame thing going on, but at the same time, I really expected a lot more from him. And there's only so much that you can do, I guess, when you're restricted. But at the same time, I felt like they could have done a lot more with the Ultron character. But regardless, he serves his purpose, I guess. So that would be really my more negative aspect of the movie, just Ultron as a whole. But other than that, everything in Avengers Age of Ultron was solid. It's not going to, wow anybody with how it's going to destroy, your perceptions of what reality is in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It isn't going to do that. It's just there to serve its purpose. It's a culmination film. And I would have liked that they focused more on Ultron character, but that's not what they want to do. As far as universe building goes, there is a lot of hinting about what's coming in the future. All you Black Panther fans out there, you watch this movie, they talk a little bit good news, but I'm not gonna say enough. But yeah, so there is some universe building, but it's not as blatant and in your face as something like Guardians of the Galaxy, where they had to constantly name drop Thanos here and there. It's definitely cool. I liked the universe building they did in this, so you can expect things in Black Panther more than anything. And the one thing I really did love the most, outside of the humor and everything, was how it focused not necessarily on the Avengers teaming up to fight the bad guy, but what happens after that? What happens after you defeat this enemy? What are the repercussions that not the world has, and how everyone's saying, oh, the distraction. No, what the actual characters have. This is something that we saw in Iron Man 3, and we also see it again here. After a while, some of these people don't want to go through this stuff on a daily basis because, it's an emotional impact. It takes a toll on them, and sometimes they have other lives they want to lead. And I'm not going to spoil anything, but Hawkeye has a very personal, thing going on in the movie that I absolutely loved. And, same thing happens with Black Widow. Same thing happens with Bruce Banner. The only one who really is like the one who's keeping everything together is Captain America. And it really talks about loss, and it talks about, do you want to continue doing this even if it is for the greater good? Maybe we do need to find alternative ways to solve these problems, because we are just a team at the end of the day. So it's definitely really gray in that respect. It's not just we're just going to team up and fight the good guy like we always do. There are a lot of things that are taken into account, which I liked. In some respect, I guess it does set the stage for Captain America 3 Civil War. So maybe that's going to be used as the basis. But yeah, Avengers Age of Ultron is definitely worth checking out. It's Winter Soldier tier, but in a different way. I'm not going to say it's like that impact of Winter Soldier, but it's great in that it serves its purpose in the universe, and it's enjoyable. It's worth checking out. I really can't think of anything negative outside of the fact that the villain was pretty weak, albeit he was kind of different, but I just felt like they could have done a lot more with him. The whole romance between Bruce Banner, it's not a spoiler, Bruce Banner and Black Widow, people say it's contrived and feels forced. I guess apples to apples, probably. But yeah, it's not a bad movie. It is not a bad movie at the end of the day. And it's definitely worth checking out, only because of Captain America, who was fucking whipping so much ass in this. This is Captain America's movie more than anything. Avengers Age of Ultron? No, this is more like Avengers Age of the Star-Spangled Beatdowns. Age of Captain America, whipping out these freaking beatdowns like democracy. Like, it's fucking crazy, bro. So, yeah, like, it's worth seeing just for that. I hope you guys enjoyed this spoiler-ish free review of Avengers Age of Ultron. I might do a second review, maybe a spoiler-filled one. Let me know down in the comments section. And yeah, I will catch you guys later. Peace.